Thank you very much. Fantastic to be here. Delighted to see you all. As I said, I'm from Ireland. I'm from Quirke in Ireland, which is down the asshole of Ireland. That bit down there. So I'm inclined to slip into some bad language. So if I do, forgive me. But it's in the nature. Well, I'll do my best. Okay, so this is a little bit of story about myself in pictures. So this is the book, Deep Excellence, that we've published last year, which I'm going to base a lot of what we'll speak about today on. But that picture there, that figure there on that back of that ship, that's me in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So my master's degree, I did science and I did a master's and I did law and did other stuff. But here it's me doing my master's in oceanography in the middle of the Atlantic, and that's me again, looking at it slimmer and younger with a very bad sense of dress code, sampling some sediments in the middle of the Atlantic. So my master's degree was studying chemistry, marine chemistry and metals and how they move around the oceans and how we have changed those systems. So by studying metals, we were able to see how humans had influenced the big systems in the oceans, how things move around, where sediments go, what's happening in the water column, how they're affecting the atmosphere. So these big macro systems that basically make our planet work. And funny enough, in my studies today, my study in marine chemistry led me into process chemistry. I spent some time in Japan, learning some Japanese engineering principles that not all they're cracked up to be. So don't let anybody fool you. Not every Japanese company is a Toyota company. So now I find that the practice, we talk now in continuous improvement about systems, and we also talk about culture and behaviors. So it's funny the way all that work back there at the sea and talking about systems has really now found an outlet in what we're doing today. So I'm going to share that with you. So a small bit about who I work for. So I'm a partner, part owner of SA Partners. We have maybe, 4 key parts of our strings for bow. We do a lot of training. We're Shingo. I'm a Shingo examiner. Shingo affiliates. We do a lot of systems consulting. So as we said, we wrote a book on TPM, which has gone down very well. So we work on key systems in organizations, and then we also work on our community. So like yourselves, we've a burgeoning. It's not half as much fun though as doing trivia. But that's good. I've put that down in my diary. So we have our own community that we support. We do a lot of free webinars and learning events, study tours, take people to Toyota, and various bits and pieces, very benchmark companies. And we have digital transformation programs going on, which is really gathering a pace now. We do a lot of work with charities, and we have our own sustainability programs. So that's a bit about us. And again, you had your Hallish fame. This is ours, to a few. Familiar names there all over the world, again, across various different industries. And we basically play with this model all the time. So we're trying to make sure, Greg mentioned the why. So ensuring that companies know what they're doing and why they're doing it. I'll avoid that creaky bit on the stage. Then there's a big question about what we do, so our process. Sometimes we find companies, their processes aren't actually aligned to what they aspire to and their purpose. Surprise, surprise. And also then how do we engage people? So how do we, again, this powerhouse, like there's a great saying in the Shingo Institute that they had a long time ago, that people are the only organizational asset with an infinite ability to increase in value. So how do we now get those people aligned and engaged in our purpose and really driving that continuous improvement everywhere, every day? Okay, so that's the little model we use. So I don't know about you all in here, but I am still traumatized by COVID. So everybody's cameras are on. Yeah, microphone's on, that's good, okay. Hands are working, everyone put up their hand. Because I'm going to need you to interact. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. If you didn't know your people on the table before we had a trivia game, you're going to know them after this, okay? The other thing I'm going to ask you to do is promise each other that what goes in the room stays in the room, okay? Because I'm going to ask you some pretty awkward questions about your own organization, what's happening. Be as open as you can be, and let's see what happens, okay? So, a needle pulling thread. This is the journey. I see some people got that. This is the journey that we all aspire to be on. This look familiar? Anybody feel like they're on this journey already? Okay. So we call it, the technical term, the squiggly line. So we move from an area where we're firefighting constantly, we aim for this area where we have stability, and then we start taking off. Okay, so we'll talk about that a lot today. So I asked a few questions earlier on a poll. Got some answers, not many, but I got some. So let's see. So here we are, we're on the squiggly line. So just hands up again, we're a systems check. How many of you have had what you call a formal continuous improvement program going on in your organization for 5 years, less than 5 years? What's it say? Over 5 years, sorry, over 5 years. Okay, very good, so good for you. Next one is 10 years, more than 10 years? Okay, so we've been at it for a while. Anyone working in a perfect business? So what's the problem? We're doing all this continuous improvement stuff, and Toyota's been kicking around for, what, 50 years? You know, when did the Womack and Jones's book start coming out? So we've been at it a while. And yet, anybody working in a perfect business? Anybody seeing a perfect business? There's a few. You can go and visit them, benchmark sites. We take away stuff that we think is good. But no, so maybe it's a different question. Perfection is possible. Yes or no? No. Okay, so what other questions should we ask? How much better could it be? Because that's what should be driving our thoughts around continuous improvement. How much better then can it be? So I've been very clever, and I've packed a very special instrument with me in my bag. It's on now, okay? And I call it the betterometer. You have one of these, don't you? You have these in your companies. So what I want you to think about is in your organization. So I just want you to take a breath. I'm going to ask you to take another breath later on for a different reason. So take a breath and think about all the things that are not going well in your organizations. Mistakes that are made, balls that are dropped, miscommunications, we use the wrong standard, yada, 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 yada. All this stuff. Just think about it. Oh, I feel the energy going out of the room. Oh. Okay, with my magic wand, that's all gone. Just like that. How much better could things be? And you say, what do you mean by better? Better what? I don't care. Just you tell me, how much better could things be in your organizations? And what I'd like you to do is think about it and write it down as a percentage. Okay? Would we be more efficient? Would people be happier? Blah, blah. I don't know what it is, but put it all in a bucket and put it in a better percentage and write it on a piece of paper. So think about it, write it on a piece of paper, and then the clever person on the table can take the average of the betterness on the table, and I'm just going to pick a few tables. So very quickly, how much better could things be? In your organizations, in your own departments, what percentage betterness could you, all these problems you have are gone. It should be a lot more than 5%. Okay. Okay, you got 30 seconds. 15. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. This always drives a lot of discussion. You probably haven't had time to average the numbers, and I realize I'm a bit late on my time, so just give me some betterness numbers. How much better can it be? 58.2%. 55.8%. Any advance of 50? What was that? 100. 100%. Well, this is a question I ask leadership teams all over the world. The first day I'm in the door, and they ask me after, who am I? I said, I'm John. And they, oh, what are you here for? Well, I'm going to ask you a question. How much better can things be? And I asked them the exact same question. Exact same question. And you said 100%. I've been in many organizations who've told me 200%, 300% better. Okay? But if I add it all up, usually they tell me things like, on average, 70% better. And then I ask them the killer question. Greg mentioned earlier, get your leaders involved. I say, who owns that? Who owns that 70%? You know it's there. Who owns it? And then, and they said, well, no, you do. As a leadership group, you own it. So what are you doing about it? Okay. So it's an interesting test. The challenge we face at the moment, this is the macroeconomics bit, Greg, yeah, there you go, is that we are aspiring for this journey of continuous improvement. Before, we used to have a fair idea what excellence used to look like. Now it's a little more cloudy. Because we are not sure what the future is really going to bring now, based on what we know is going on in the environmental sphere, supply chain, I have clients who are unlikely to be in business in 5 years' time because of changes in legislation. Anybody heard of the sin list? Sin list? No. So a list of chemicals that European Union is drawing together that will no longer be allowed to be put in products. So that means some of my clients will no longer be able to sell what they need to do. Anyone here in single-use plastic? Okay. Keep an eye on it. So we don't know what this future is going to look like, and now more than ever, that's being challenged. What will that future look like? What will excellence look like in the future? Because it is not going to look like what it looks like today. But that doesn't mean we don't continue on this journey, because what this gives us is choices. If we improve things and we get capacity, or we get more headspace, we can think about what we might do. But we need to be thinking about that now. We need to be thinking about what would we need to be thinking about based on what we know is coming down the line. And it's not too difficult to find those sort of things out if you start reading around and talking to people. So we continue on the journey knowing that we have to give ourselves choices. In the red zone, you have no choices. Okay? You have no choices. It's a survival. And part of that is, okay, well, maybe we won't survive and that might be good. Because we're wasting too much stuff. So in the red zone, there's more at stake than just profit. It's about how we're treating people. It's about how we're using our resources. So here's another quick test for you on your tables. I want you to think about, we talked about behaviors earlier. What are the behaviors, the not ideal behaviors in your organizations that keep you in the red zone? So think about that. I told you it's going to be heavy. So just think about it. What are the not ideal behaviors that you see regularly in your organization that keep you in that red zone? Anyone want to shout some out? What was that? Resistance to change. Okay, it's always been this way. I had a very interesting conversation with a lady one time in the organization. We never used to do this 30 years ago. And I said, well, 30 years ago you didn't have computers. Okay, what else? Resistance. Lack of accountability. Okay, anything else?
Overcorrection in the short term.
Overcorrect. So we're short-term thinking. We're trying to make sure we get the end of the month, the end of the week, get the product out the door, meet our numbers, yada, 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 yada. Anything else?
Poor process discipline.
Sorry?
Poor process discipline, not sticking to your process.
Not sticking to your
Processes.
process, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, so we take shortcuts. How many people in the room have potentially procedures that don't match what happens in reality in the process? Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, so there's lots of behaviors going on. And we try and fix those. Okay, we put in all these improvement tools, and we talked about that. We're doing improvement for years. So we do all this stuff. We focus on the process. Great Shingo principle. We try and see the reality. We standardize stuff. We problem solve. We engage the team, innovate, But yet, we still have 70% improvement that's available to us if we really went after it. So it feels like we're a bit stuck in the Stone Age. We keep going back, looking at the same things over and over again. And here's a behavioral psychology bit. We are stuck in the Stone Age. Because what we suffer from is that we have, well, we don't suffer from it, it's why we're here, is we have this evolutionary legacy that is hardwired in our brains today. All this history, what life appeared 4 billion years ago, things started scratching around the place 500 million years ago, and we popped up only something like 65 million years ago as a hairy ape or whatever. And we stood up on our back legs and started looking something like what we look today about 1 million years ago. But the people who are running around wherever it was, the African savannah in their underwear, hopefully, had the same brains that we have today. That's 100,000, 200,000 years ago. Same brains, same physiology. And that has an enormous impact on the way we behave. So there's 4 key areas that I see. And it's not only me, but there's a lot of stuff, and I'm going to show you some links to it in this talk. How we conform to the tribe. Okay? How our brains conserve energy. We've all heard about the fight or flight or freeze response. Yeah. And the last one, which was most interesting for me when I wrote the book Deep Excellence, when I was reading it, is that we are hardwired to mistrust our leaders. Interesting. So what do they look like? So this is conformance to the tribe. Anybody seen this Asch experiment? Hands up. Okay, the rest of you, 99% in the room, go and find this on YouTube. This is one of the most powerful videos showing how we're so influenced by the tribe. So there's 3 lines here. So the one that isn't under A, B, and C, there's a line there. Which line do you think that's the same length of A, B, and C? C. Would you think you'd ever say anything different? No, it's easy. It's just 3 lines, and you pick one, they're all the same. So when the Bee Gees weren't playing music, they got involved in psychological experiments. And the guy sitting down there, so this is called the Asch experiment. Very easy to find on YouTube. But if you have not seen this and you're in the continuous improvement space, go and see it. Okay. So basically, this poor guy here, I think this is Andy Gibb, is sitting down in the red jacket there. He's the victim. Everyone else is part of the experiment. And basically, after each round, they're being told, okay, He gives the right answer first round, and everyone else is given the wrong answer. Okay, and what happens the next time? They all give the wrong answer again. So 2 rounds. Did he give the right or wrong answer on the second round? The wrong answer. So it only took, he capitulated on the second round. So Asch repeated this experiment many, many, many times. What do you think the percentage of people who capitulated on the first round? On the second round, excuse me. 30%, 33%. On the subsequent rounds, it went up to 60%. Now, you imagine that in your organizations. People give the wrong answer, even though they know it's wrong. Okay? Power of the tribe. So I really recommend you. So why is that a survival response for us? Why is that wired into the way our brains are structured? This thing about conformance to the tribe. You cannot afford to be turfed out of your gang, because within 2 seconds you'll be in some animal's belly, or else you starve miserably to death over a number of days. So it's a big driver. Don't upset the tribe, even if you know what you're saying is wrong. So anybody seen this one? Simmons, hands up, be brave. Okay, more homework for the rest of you. So the purpose of this experiment is what? What is this showing us? We can miss things that are very obvious to us. Okay, so this is where, am I going to give the game away now, or will we just let them wait? Okay, so we get focused on the task, and then we miss something that's right in front of our eyes. How could I have missed that? Okay, so Simmons has made a career on all of this. So you have to think about it. If we're so stupid and we can't see things that are obvious, how do we survive? How are we still here? If we're busy rooting around for seeds and stuff on the ground, and we don't miss the saber-toothed tiger that's coming over the hill, how come we're still here? Question, how come we're still here? If our brains miss things that are so obvious when we're focused on the task, how come we're still here? Who's watching the horizon? Other members of our team, our tribe. So again, if we have a culture in our organization where we all are focused on the task, and we don't give anybody the headspace to keep an eye on the horizon or spot the gorilla, I gave it away, spot the gorillas in our workplace, then we get into trouble. People get used to having the gorillas around. They feed them. Oh, they're always here. So we need to purposefully ensure that people have the headspace to keep an eye on the horizon for the saber-toothed tigers. Again, another great video, easy to find on YouTube, and brilliant for focusing on why we need to have people talk about this idea of psychological safety. So we need to be safe in our work. So I can say, do you know what, John, there's a gorilla over there, and I think he's going to cause a problem. So we need to do something about it. Instead of flipping onto the first one, we said, well, nobody said that gorilla is a problem. I think it's a problem, but I'm not going to say it's a problem because everybody else doesn't say it's a problem. So I'll just ignore it. It's not there. Yeah, it's not there. So the fight or flight or stress response. So we've, as Greg showed, a much more detailed diagram of the brain, but I just break it down into 2 bits. Green brain, red brain. We're most human in our green brain. We solve problems. We can engage with people. We can be creative. We work well with the tribe. In the red brain, we're back in our underwear running around the savannah, surviving. If we're being criticized and how we're under pressure, we just focus on the task. It's about survival. I'm not hearing, I just want to get out of here. And that drives, it's just, we can't do if we're stressed, our body automatically drives us into that thing, into that state of being. And we cannot think. We're more likely to go into our tribal responses in our red brain. Interestingly, what's a switch that almost instantaneously brings us from our red brain to our green brain? Anybody know? Humor, laughter. So if we're in this stressful situation and yet somehow we can make a joke about it, we suddenly come back into our green brain. Anybody have felt that situation? You see a team just, and it's very, very powerful stuff, but it's a simple little switch. But living in your red brain for long term is a big problem. It's a big problem for the organization, and it's a big problem for the individuals. So again, this last one, which was interesting, is this idea that we're hardwired to mistrust our leaders. Why is that a survival response for us as humans? We're in our tribe. The leaders telling us we're going to go over that hill and we're going to slay those mammoths. Why is that inbred as a survival instinct for us, that we don't trust John telling us to go over the hill? He's not doing it with us. So, or maybe we remember the last time we went over the hill and we got 7 types of knocked out of us, and some of us didn't come back. So it was a bad advice. But one of the most key things is if I'm going over the hill to get those mammoths, and I'm charging over, got my spear sharpened and everything, and I'm looking around and say, hang on, where's John? And he's back there. That's not going to work. So the only way we begin to trust our leaders is by seeing what they do. So they have to lead by example. They have to be involved. They have to get down and dirty, and they have to be part of the story in where we want to go. If that is not happening, we are hardwired to mistrust what they're saying to us, which is interesting. So the question is, why is all this important? So as I said, we go on this journey, we don't know what that excellence will be, but now there's a lot more at stake. If we are spending time in this red zone, not doing stuff, creating waste, stressing out people, there's a lot more at stake now. So what that is again, let's take that other breath I mentioned. So just take a breath and fill your lungs. Okay, so what have we just done? What have we just taken into our lungs? This was on the trivia question. It wasn't on the trivia question. So what have we just taken into our body? Oxygen, air, oxygen. How much oxygen in the air? 18%, 20%. Okay, here's the killer. Where has that oxygen come from? Trees and plankton in the sea. How much from trees? How much from plankton? Now it's getting tough. Mostly plankton. So our seas are responsible, plus or minus, for between 55 to 65% of the oxygen we breathe. The rest of it comes from plant life on land. Oxygen that we need to live comes from nowhere else. So if you think of all the systems you hear about, forests, what's happening in the seas today, how comfortable do you feel? Okay? Because that's how connected we are to these big global systems. Oxygen comes from nowhere else. You can't buy it. We can't pull it in from space. It's made by natural systems on our planet, and we need it. And unfortunately, those systems are in trouble at the moment. So we need to get much more focused on this idea of behaviors, and also the systems that are enabling it. So again, we usually have the story in organizations. A leader sets a vision, we're going to do this, da-da. And then I see, okay, right, that's great. So we have a picture, but the senior leaders or the senior leadership team, they have influence. But the power in organizations is in that middle management team. And where we make the difference is the impact on the front line. Behaviors nowhere else change a good day to a bad day other than the front line. We can talk as much as we want at those higher levels, but unless that talk is impacting the frontline levels in the behaviors that are going to make a difference, well then we're not winning. So to move us from that red zone, to start making things real. And I used to spend lots of time, these ideal behaviors and what do you need and the Shingo principles, yada, yada, yada. But we don't have time anymore. So what I do is, okay, so what are not ideal behaviors that are happening today that are hurting us? What are the behaviors that are within 2 clicks, click, click, I'll have an impact on the business? What are they? Let's talk about them. If we had more time today, we could talk about them. We could get a list on the wall, something like this, and we could talk about them. But when we have them on the wall like this, we can very quickly do the judo flip on them and turn them into what? The behaviors we want. So we don't want that behavior because that hurts us. This is why it hurts us. We want this one. So we need to get much quicker in defining what these not ideal behaviors are and getting much clearer what they look like at these different levels. Because if my leaders are sitting in the office when we're running over to get the mammoths, that's not an ideal behavior. We need to change it. If our leaders are not present, if they're not seen in the work, if they're not involved in continuous improvement activity, if they're not giving people those creds for the great work they did on improving something, they're not ideal behaviors. So let's do something about it. So behind all that, then we also need the systems, and that's where the KaiNexicon structure and the KaiNexicon thinking about how we manage all this is really, really useful. So here's a picture of a broken egg. You're supposed to go, oh wow, there's that egg. There's a story behind this because we're all on LinkedIn, Facebook for people with jobs. So you post something on LinkedIn. Oh, here's some training we did, 500 views. Here's John doing something exciting on his boat or whatever. 1,000, 1,500 views. I put a broken egg up there. 35,000 views for a broken egg. Anyway, but the story behind it is this. I use this analogy to think about our systems drive not ideal behaviors. So this should be all very familiar to you. So I took the egg as an unplanned event. What we normally see happens is we do an investigation, okay? And when I see you all going green and pale, I'll just know how real this is for your own organization. We bring in experts to start solving the problem, okay? We attempt to define root causes, but we're not really close to the process. We don't really get there, okay? We sometimes go down to this idea, it's human error, we need to retrain people, okay? Next thing is we need a process change. We need to change something in process. So now we do change control. That's another big long rigmarole. That makes its own mistakes, yada, 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 okay? And then at the end of the day, when we do put in the fix, it's the wrong fix. And guess what? We have the problem happen again. How many of your problems have never happened before? Okay. Intuitively, people talk about a number of 95% of the issues that you suffer every week, every day have happened before. So how do we think about this as a system? And then we think about what behaviors is this system driving? Unpredictable processes, frustration, incredible levels of waste. Okay, we think about it. Facilitated process ignorance. We're not giving ourselves the time to think about our process. We learned helplessness. Yeah, all this sound familiar? Anybody criticizing any of this? Oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay, so this is problem solving. And there's something has gone wrong in the way I look at this. Okay, There's two sides of problem solving. We predict, and we have a problem that we have to deal with. But in a culture of excellence, which would dominate? Predict. But we don't do that, okay? Which mindset is greater on cost, waste, and risk? Problems. But yet we still don't emphasize predicting. Which mindset has a better opportunity to really engage a team? People say, when problem solving, we'll have time and we'll engage a team, we'll learn more. Does that really happen? Do we see that happening in our organizations? Do we have time to spend time on it, or are we rushed? So again, there's an opportunity to really rebalance what we think about between predicting and dealing with problems. So predicting should enable us to learn more about our process. It should engage a team, because we have to go down and talk to our team and understand what's happening more to balance it better. So this predictive management style, which I do see in some companies, really is around operational excellence. We don't allow problems to happen. We use the tools, the way we risk assess, the way we understand our processes, and we have loads of tools. Failure mode and effect analysis, we do risk assessment, we da-da-da-da. So we have a lot of the thinking, yet we just keep falling into this problem-solving mode because that's the system we fall into. Whereas to reduce the waste from that, we need to redesign the system and refocus on more broader approach to preventing problems in our business to get us out of that red zone. So this is a system, if you like, where we really expect better behaviors from leaders and managers and associates. So in the middle bit, that's what we do, our day job. And it should show the value of flow. This is how we flow value through our business. Sure, problems will happen. And we need a system to pick up those problems and deal with them. But equally, we need a very strong, equally balanced system to predict and constantly review what's happening. So we're predicting what's happening. We set our priorities, and when I go into an ideal environment, I go to a tier management board, and I don't just see all the problems they have, I see the risks that they have and the risks that they're preventing before they become a problem. But you tend to see that very, very infrequently. It's always the problems that we've had today, not what we're doing about learning about our process in the future and stopping it from happening in the first place. This is waste. This is good management. So what's the impact of this system on our behaviors? No fear, psychological safety, constant learning. You know, do we really learn from our problems, or would we learn from predicting and preventing our problems happening in the first place? We could argue that over a few pints later. We'd have the right measures in the right place. Okay? Responsiveness. Ownership. Somebody mentioned ownership earlier on. Process focus. Something I see not enough of in organizations. And again, the aim of this system is stability, reliability, and predictability. Not what we get from the other side of the house. So there's an issue I see at the moment where we have this real crisis approaching us around how we utilize our resources, how we engage people, and how we get them really engaged in a process. But we have systems that tend to drive the wrong behaviors. They create pressure because we don't have time to solve our problems, and then all that feeds into the red brain bit that I mentioned earlier. Whereas if we're giving time and we're predicting, well, then we're using more of our green brain. But that's only enabled by inspired leaders who can have defined that system and see the balance between predicting and problem solving, and focus the conversations more over here than here. We have to deal with this, the problem solving, but we need to start the dialogue over here on predicting, preventing the problems happening in the first place, rather than just waiting for them to happen and reacting to them. And that can be learned. So we can learn, a lot of this is about how we speak to people, how we create that psychological safety, how we acknowledge the existence of the red and the green brain. I am astounded by how many leaders, and again, you need to go and do your homework and see those videos yourselves, by how many senior leaders don't know this psychological, evolutionary psychology stuff. They don't know that people are so vulnerable to just follow the tribe. They don't know that if I keep at somebody, they are just going to go into their red brain and they will get stressed and they will not feel psychological safety, and we will not be looking at gorillas, and if I see a problem, I'm not really going to mention it because it's too hard and I just ignore it and yada, 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 yada. We don't have time for that anymore. So there's a focus on really inspiring leaders to be more aware of this, to look at the systems and really ask themselves, what are the behaviors this system is driving? And are they the behaviors we need, or are the behaviors that are going to get us into trouble? Okay. And unfortunately, we see a propensity of behaviors that get us into trouble. And it doesn't take much. We can make small adjustments in the way we talk to people. And again, even that idea, somebody's feeling stressed, the team are down. Okay, we'll bring a bit of humor into it. Work is not prison. Other stuff goes on. Lighten it up. And suddenly, whoop, we're back into a green brain and we can think better. Leaders have to watch out for that all the time. So, as yourselves, and again, I have a worry, which I talk about in my own business quite a lot, is that there's a lot of focus, particularly in Europe, there's a lot of legislative drivers that are pushing companies to now focus much more on sustainability. The impacts, the reporting, the numbers, the blah, 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 blah. And that's taken time away from the improvement agenda, which seems crazy, because the skills to make the difference are in this room. You have the skills to really begin to look at processes, look at systems, and drive behaviors that are going to make a real impact on this, rather than we're just going to do stuff for the sake of doing stuff. Those impact numbers you had were extremely impressive, but now maybe we might need to target them in a different area. Because if we don't, we may become irrelevant. We'll lose the space. And when I say we, I mean the continuous improvement community. And all the noise and action will be going on over here. But we have the skills to really make this change and make impact on this issue. And that's what we tried to cover in the book, Deep Excellence. So all of this comes together like all good systems. You can't have one system working on its own. The problem solving, the way we do problem solving is one system. Also how we do leadership, how we talk about behaviors are all other systems. Our training and development. All these systems come together to enable what we call deep excellence. And that's what we're trying to do when we wrote this book, because we're feeling we don't have time anymore. We need to get this stuff working. Like, we've been knocking this around, this continuous improvement idea. We've made huge strides, we've made huge improvements, but there's more to do. And we need to start doing it. And we talk about this as being maybe a new moral obligation. We have all these resources available to us. How are we using them in our organizations? And you, boys and girls, have the ability to really influence this in a very, very positive way. Thank you very much.